Hello, class. This is your instructor speaking, Mr. Finelli. Today we're going to be talking about the ancient Egyptian civilization, course pertaining to 10th grade world civilization. And we're going to get into what the civilization was and how it was formed and how it affects everything that goes on with what we have today to a certain degree. And you might learn quite a bit about how things came to be because the ancient Egyptians were very advanced for the time period that they lived in. And there's quite a bit of reasons why that is, and we'll get into that. So, first off, we're going to talk about do you know where Egypt is actually located? Egypt is located in the north eastern corner of Africa. As you can see on the map, it has the Mediterranean Sea to the north, the Red Sea to the southeast, and it has the Nile River going running right through it essentially. These are three main water sources which are very vital to the Egyptian civilization and its forming and how it operated. The Nile River actually is the one that we will be focusing on the most because it was a very, very vital, probably the most vital of them all, into the forming of the ancient Egyptian civilization. Um, so let's start from the beginning. Egypt was actually settled about over 7,000 years ago, and it was settled by nomads around the time of 5000 BCE. Uh, they were these nomads were people that were wandering around in the desert, and they discovered Egypt for one main reason: the Nile River. The Nile River, like I said earlier, was the heart and soul of the ancient Egyptians' civilization and its forming. And still today, you can see pictures um, of how big it is and what it looks like. It's still used today for transportation and many other things that we're going to be going into here. So, why is the Nile River the lifeline of the ancient Egyptian civilization? So, every year the Nile River actually flooded. And why is this important? Most people think it's not a good thing because why would you want your river to flood? Well, flooding actually it brought a very good fertile soil from the bottom of the riverbeds, and these fertile soil was full of vitamins and minerals. And as you know, you can't grow things without fertile soil. So this allowed for successful growth of planted crops. And in the location of Egypt, it's a very dry uh, landscape, and it was not very easy to harvest and have any kind of crop growth. So the Nile River was really, really important for life, for food, for water, for basically everything that was going on in the creation of their civilization. Transportation and the irrigation for the crops were essential to Egyptian life. So the food, what food did we grow in ancient Egyptian civilization? Well, they had the luxury, since they were on the Nile River, of having irrigation systems that had more than one option of generating food. Such things as barley, wheat, and flax, which is a fiber crop, were harvested. Those were some of the main crops at the time. And with these crops, they were able to have bread. They also had vegetables, fruit, and since the Nile was a source of itself, they were also able to fish. So they were able to have whatever life came out of the river as well. So, what other things besides just food and water for irrigation and harvesting of crops was the Nile useful for? Well, trade. There wasn't cars. There was no others, no trains, no planes. Obviously, back then, there's no source of transportation at this time that was quick and efficient, but the use of the Nile River. It was the modern day bullet train essentially for travel. It was obviously in this location they were in very desperate need for trade because they did not have all the proper things needed for other parts of their civilization to be sustained. Um, so what types of things would they trade? They traded goods like gold, papyrus, linen, and resources other than also such as cedar, ebony, copper, iron, ivory, lapis, and lazuli, which were gemstones that were valuables back in this time period. Um, these ships were able to sail up the Nile River, and they took goods from different places located along the river, from top to bottom and bottom to top. Um, like I said earlier, the importance of trade in the Egyptian society was very vital, and actually it was reflected in some of the city names that were created by the ancient Egyptians. Aswan, which comes from the ancient Egyptian word swene, which means trade. And if you look at your map on the bottom right, you can see that. And Elephantine got its name from the elephant ivory trade. Both of these were ancient Egyptian cities that were named because of the direct correlation with trade and their view on how valuable trade was. A big trading partner of the Egyptians was Nubia, which was probably their most popular trade partner at the time. So where did these ancient Egyptians live in? What types of houses and how are they made? Well, with the use of mud and obviously the abundance of water, they were able to make their homes out of mud brick, which today we have brick houses. It was the brick house of the time, essentially, which was cutting edge for that time period. The higher up in your social status that you were as a person, the better the houses were built for you. It's not like today's society. Many things were different. A lot of the wealthy and elite status Egyptians had bathrooms, and lower status ones did not. So if you were an affluent person in your society, you got the higher upper end type of houses. And we'll get into what their social statuses were and all that here coming up. So, what language did they speak? Well, they used a writing system, I'm sorry, that involved different kinds of symbols called hieroglyphics. And I'm sure some of you have heard hieroglyphics used before. Hieroglyphics was used to keep track of government records for laws. They had for the taxes and documentation of their historical events. And if you look to the right, there's an example of this, and you see them on many ancient Egyptian tablets or buildings inside them. Their recorded history and what time was back then. These symbols of the hieroglyphics can also be found in Egyptian temples and even artwork that they have found today. So what religion did they follow? They were a polytheistic religion, which is they believed in the worship of one or more gods. They didn't just follow one god. They had a god. As you can see on the slide, they had over 2,000 gods and goddesses, and all these gods represented some different type of thing in their life. the god of death, the god of the sun, the god of many different uh, types of things that were relevant to their life in that time. They had massive temples that were built to honor the gods, and their strong belief in the afterlife was very present and can be seen in burials and other things that were or that are found today in artifacts, representing that they believed in the afterlife very strongly. So now we have the Pharaoh of Egypt. The Pharaoh was the supreme leader. He was not only just seen as the king, but he was seen as a god as well. He wasn't just the person that made laws and other things in that nature pertaining to government. He had ownership over all land, people, and basically whatever those people might possess themselves or own. Um, he was seen by the people as a god, like I stated earlier, which they believed was the direct descendant of the sun god. He had complete control and access to the afterlife and who would be granted access to it. And they had a belief that he controlled the floods in Egypt as well. So you can see they give a lot of power to the pharaoh as a figure in this civilization of ancient Egypt. He stood as the center of a religion and the government, and the type of government in Egypt, as we know it today, is a theocracy. And what that means is a system of government in which priests rule in the name of God or a god. So he was essentially a priest and a god and a government leader. He was all powerful in every aspect of life. So, like I said earlier, we're the social hierarchy system. It is often referred to as a pyramid, ironically. I know a lot of you associate pyramids off the top of your head with ancient Egyptian societies, and you wouldn't be wrong. But this pyramid, as you can see, it's starting from the top. Pharaohs are at the top. Government officials, which were nobles and priests, are underneath that. Then you have the soldiers, which were very important to keeping order in the society. They come third. Then you have merchants, artisans, farmers, and slaves and servants. From top being the highest to the bottom being the lowest in the social hierarchy pyramid. So you, like I stated at the beginning, you might be asking, so what do they do exactly that was so great that would be known today? Well, some of their great achievements had to do with mathematics. And in return, they had masterful engineers and architects that today we build things and we see skyscrapers and cities built, and they were kind of the cutting edge of that. They didn't have the technology we had today, but they created the basic form of that technology with mathematics to create such buildings and things like the pyramid. They formed the study of stars. They created the first 12-month calendar and 365-day calendar, which we still use today, which is kind of extremely important, as you all probably can agree. They first inventors of papyrus, which is paper, which we all still currently use today in almost every part of our daily lives. Irrigation systems for farms, like I stated in the beginning with the Nile River. We still see that on farms today, and the mass production of crops for feeding our world we live in today. and they created very good creators of art, um, and statues and paintings and very good with jewelry, which, and if you look in the bottom right, they're still found and being found and being sold to for a lot of money. They're very valuable pieces of work. Very impressive for, like I said, the technology they had during that time period. Very good with handcraft. So, what did we learn today? Well, I got a few questions listed up there on your screen. We're going to take a quiz. This isn't a quiz that you should feel uh, too worried about, because we will go over it again. This is kind of a quiz where I want to quiz you to see where you are with regards to what I have taught you. So, number one, you see, where specifically is Egypt located? Number two, how many bodies of water does Egypt have around it? And can you name them? Give three examples. Number three, give three examples of how the Nile River was the lifeline of Egypt. Number four, what language did Egyptians create? And can you describe how the language was written? Number five, what kind of government did Egypt have? Number six, what kind of religious beliefs did Egyptians have? Number seven, who is believed to be a direct descendant of the sun god? True or false for number eight, the Nile River flooded Egypt at least every 3 years. Number nine, true or false, some southern Egyptian cities' names were created because of the importance of trade. And number 10, name at least two great achievements of the ancient Egyptians. And like I said, this is a quiz to see where you are in terms of with the information presented today during this class session. It's not really a quiz based for points, so don't feel too stressed out, but I would like to see where you are with the information that I presented with you. Because like I said, over the next couple weeks, we will be going over more in-depth stuff regarding the ancient civilization and talking about more intricate pieces of that. So thank you for listening today. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me and or ask me in class. Thank you.